Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is part 11 of What If Naruto Was a League Summoner. If you guys enjoy this what if, and want to see part 12 of it, comment down below and let me know. I have created a playlist for this what if, where you can find all the previous parts, link is in the description. And go ahead, and check out other what ifs in the channel. Before we start, please do support for more awesome content. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a like, and also share this video with your friends. So let's start this video. That morning, Ravel Phoenix stood in the kitchen of Uzumaki residence, wearing an apron around her waist. As she didn't want her hair to get into the batter, which was now cooking along with the cakes in the oven, her blonde locks had been tied back into a single ponytail at the back of her head instead of the usual twirls, similar to that of her mother's. The timer said it was 15 minutes left until it finished baking, so Ravel used that time to focus on the mixer currently mixing her ingredients for the chocolate frosting. But as she stood there, the youngest child of the Phoenix household couldn't stop herself from recalling the events that she had had the past few days, coming to study as a first-year student at Kuo Academy and living in the same house as the high-class devil she greatly admired, Ryu's Grimoire. The first 2 days had been difficult for her, having been tutored almost her entire childhood. Ravel really didn't know how normal school would be, so she was a little overwhelmed, though she had done her best to not show it. In the end, it had been all thanks to Ria's advice and guidance, as well as her reluctant classmate Kaneko Toju, who called her Yakitori, and annoyed her the first moment their eyes met, that she had been able to make it and become more comfortable with high school. But the most interesting of them all had to be with Naruto Uzumaki, summoner of the League of Legends. Over the course of a few days, she had been able to get to know him better, while being treated with nothing but kindness and friendliness by the blonde, who didn't seem to care that she was a high-class lady of a noble devil house. Because of it and also his casual attitude as well as lack of proper respect, he was a bit annoying to her at first, but the more time she spent around Naruto, the more she felt herself being drawn toward him, and it hadn't been just because he was the summoner of Anivia the Cryo Phoenix. The day that he had summoned Anivia and introduced Ravel to her, and her parents when they came to meet him properly for the first time, had been the best and happiest moment of her life. Ravel had always wanted to meet a true phoenix, regardless of her element, since the day she was just a little child, so to become friends with one, and to be acknowledged by her as well, had been a truly mind-blowing experience for the youngest child of the Phoenix Devil household. "What you cooking, kid?" Ravel flinched, almost gasped when she heard that voice, and felt a presence suddenly appear behind her. Snapping her head around, she saw the ancient demoness Evelyn standing there with a smile on her face, wearing that scanty maid outfit of hers, whenever Grafie or the two parents weren't around. "Evelyn, please stop creeping up on me like that," Ravel snapped at Evelyn, while holding her chest. Yes, like everyone in the house, she was still a bit wary of Evelyn. His love for pain and suffering was only outclassed by her unhealthy obsession for rough hardcore sex with her summoner Naruto Uzumaki, but she didn't hate, or even dislike her. But recently the demoness had started to get on her nerves with how she always tried to get on her nerves, just to see the cute angry face of a little bird, as Evelyn had put it herself. "Maybe you should be more aware of your surroundings, maybe that will help," the demoness casually said as she walked to Ravel's side, and reached out to touch the chocolate frosting the Phoenix girl was mixing in the bowl with her pinky finger. Evelyn then commented, after she had licked it off her fingertip, in a rather sexual manner, "Oh nice, that chocolate frosting tastes really good. Did not expect that from a little noble lady." Thanks, I guess," Ravel said, accepting the praise from the 15,000-year-old demoness as she went to check on the cake in the oven, allowing the blonde to take a better look at Evelyn, before commenting, "You look different. Did Naruto-sama give me a makeover this morning?" "Yes, he did. If you ask me, I think he's having a little bit too much fun with that new power of his, and Ahari isn't really helping. She seems to like playing dress-up with him though." Agony's embrace said in mild annoyance before she stood up, hurling her long silver hair behind her back, and picking a pan up to use it like a mirror, looking at her own reflection. Not a fan of this look, but who am I to complain? "I think it suits you." Ravel smiled, but when Evelyn glanced at her, the Phoenix girl quickly added, before she got the wrong idea, while waving her hands in front of her, "Don't be mistaken. I mean, you just look less threatening and more trustworthy, that's all. Don't worry, Han, I'm open for all types." Keywords, all types. The demoness slurred seductively as she licked her lip in a sexual manner before breaking out in laughter when Ravel's cheeks went completely red. It's so fun to tease young little girls like you. Asha is still pure, so she can't understand most of my jokes, but you." The demoness chuckled evilly, her eyes glinting evilly. "What are you doing here in the kitchen, Evelyn?" Ravel decided to interrupt her to change the subject, having had enough of the demon's shameless sexual teasing. How Naruto and Rias were able to put up with this demon was beyond her. "Today is not your cooking day, if I remember correctly." Because there were so many people in the house with amazing cooking skills, Kushina had decided to arrange a cooking schedule for all of them. For example, the mother would be cooking on Monday and Thursday, while Rias would have Tuesday and Sunday all for herself to prepare lunch and dinner for everyone, etc etc. It was a fairly simple schedule, with the days being divided equally, so no one had ever complained about it. Actually, it is. Surzich's Lucifer asked for Graphia's assistance in preparing for the meeting between the three factions, so she asked me to cover it for her, before she left to the underworld this morning. Ravel raised an eyebrow in realization at that. So that was the reason she couldn't find the silver-haired maid anywhere, and thought that she was with Naruto, Ahari, Riaz, and Ashia, who were currently training in one of the training rooms of the first basement floor and running even more tests on his new power. Ravel had not asked what they were really doing down there, since she didn't want to disturb Naruto and her Riaz-sama of their works, but the two seemed to be getting closer and closer to a groundbreaking discovery, one that had shocked even Graphia herself, when they told her about it. Oh, so you will be preparing lunchboxes for everyone today too, including Naruto-sama's. Yes, can't let our big dick of a summoner eat only chocolate cakes for lunch now, can we? He will need all the energy in the world to fuck me stupid once I have him in the mood for some mindless, hardcore sex. Ravel felt her face burn at that, despite the fact that she wasn't even using her demonic power. Evelyn, meanwhile, couldn't stop herself from laughing like a maniac, while holding her stomach, finding the face the usually prideful Phoenix girl was making too hilarious for her to keep it in. What's going on here? The calm and collected voice caused Evelyn to stop laughing and Ravel to look up to see it was none other than the rogue wind samurai Yasuo himself walking into the room with a neutral look on his face and Blitzcrank standing in the hallway behind him, though he had to crouch down a little because the path wasn't tall enough for him. Nothing, isn't that right, Ravel-chan? Evelyn asked the Phoenix girl, using the Japanese suffix she had heard so often around the house to make sure that Ravel would catch her hidden meaning. Yes, nothing at all. Ravel shook her head while laughing nervously. I found that hard to believe, considering how hard you were laughing, demon. Yasuo said and took out from his yukata an empty cup of tea with a small teaspoon, whilst Evelyn just yawned and had a look of boredom on her face. Miss Ravel, I would like to have some more tea, if you please. Oh, of course Yasuo-san. Ravel said and grabbed the teapot she had brewed earlier, that morning for Yasuo and Naruto's father Minato before the latter left for work. Here you go. Smiling, the girl poured the tea into the cup for the rough samurai as he held it up for her. Thank you, young miss. Yasuo said as he darted his eyes to glance over to Evelyn. If the demon tries to pick on you, don't hesitate to let me know. The summoner and Miss Graphia have tasked me with. Blah blah, same boring shit. I teased the girl and then what? You are going to teach me a lesson, Yasuo? Evelyn questioned, interrupting with a casual smirk on her face. Why even make such a fuss about it? And even if it is so, you can't do anything to me. You're just a frail little human and also, we both know that you suck ass at guarding duty. Be careful with your choices of words, demon. Yasuo said, his tone lowering as his eyes became sharp, and his fingers lightly touched the teaspoon in his cup, an action that Evelyn noticed instantly. Or what? You are going to slit my throat with that teaspoon. I would love to see you try, Yasuo. Will I shove that stupid sword of yours so far up your ass you can play Earl Fruit Ninja with your mouth? Almost at the same time, the two champions acted. It started with Yasuo putting his cut down the table, not spilling a droplet of tea, even when he pulled the teaspoon out, and held it out in front of him, taking a stance like a samurai holding his sword with one hand. Meanwhile, Evelyn's lashes appeared and shot out from the back of her neck, as her fingernails grew sharp and extended like talons, mist-like shadow pouring out around her, and returning the demoness to her previous sinister look and presence. Knock it off you two. No fighting in the house. But before either of them could lunge at each other, with Evelyn being the one who would most likely do it first, a strong voice cut them off from current glaring contest, and turned their heads to the hallways, to see their summoner Naruto Uzumaki coming back from his training. Ahari and Riaz walking next to him, with Ashia and her familiar Raito, riding on the floating book of Threshold with Yumi the magical cat, trailing a little behind them. Seeing the gentle former nun who had befriended him the first day he was at Uzumaki residence, Blitzcrank waved a hand at her. Before walking back so Naruto could enter the kitchen and look at his two champions firmly with his arms crossing on his chest. He or she started it. The blonde could only sigh in defeat as Yasuo and Evelyn went back, to glare at each other, with the Unforgiven being the one who looked more calm and casual than Agony's embrace as he pointed his teaspoon at her, who was also snarling like an angry animal. Since this wasn't the first time it had happened, Naruto wasn't feeling surprised in the slightest. Later that morning. Oh wow, this looks absolutely incredible. Naruto praised while looking into the box holding the chocolate cake Ravel had made for him. Riaz and Ashia also had one for themselves, and were currently carrying them beside their lunch boxes, which had been prepared for them by Evelyn, after she had made peace with Yasuo on his request. Really? The blonde Ojusama devil asked with a hopeful smile, her cheeks dusting pink. The girl acted proud and proper almost all the time, but Naruto thought her blushing face could be one of the cutest things ever. You really think so? Yeah, and I'm sure it will taste great too. The blonde grinned, giving her a thumb up. Of course it will. Ravel laughed proudly in response. I woke up very early this morning, to make them after all. Really? You really did? Oh, I'm flattered. Baka. Not just for a low-class devil like you. Naruto just laughed as Ravel shoved her hands into his chest, making him stumble back a little. Her cheeks couldn't really get any redder. He could see why Evelyn liked to tease her so much. The girl's reactions were just adorable. Okay, stop teasing her, Naruto. Ryu spoke up with a smile, before making a gesture toward the direction they were heading with her head. There are the others. The blonde smiled, and looked to see the other members of the Occult Research Club standing and waiting for them at the front gate of Kuo Academy. Today was Saturday, so they didn't have school, but to prepare for the summer swimming classes, the student council had tasked them with the job of cleaning one of the school pools near the gym, which had gotten very muddy and dirty since it hadn't been properly cleaned since the end of last semester, as well as because of the debris and smoke that ended up falling into it during the fight against Kakabiel. Once they were done, they could be the first to use the pool and use them however they wanted. It seemed to be something Rias had been looking forward to for the whole week. They weren't kidding when they said that this pool was dirty, weren't they? Naruto asked with a chuckle as he looked at the pool before him. Yikes. I don't think I have ever seen dirtier water before. Yumi, who Naruto had summoned when they entered school, couldn't stop herself from commenting while doing her best to not vomit at the stinky smell coming from the lake. You know, I think I saw something similar to this during an exorcism years ago. Zenobia tilted her head to the side and casually commented, it doesn't end well. The priest ended up possessed in the end. Ashia shuddered at that as she stood with the other member of Ria's peerage, looking at the pool they had been assigned to clean. The water had an ugly brown color and was almost pitch black. Sludge had accumulated over the surface of the water, and piles of leaves had built up so far from the floor that they poked out the top. It was hard to see the bottom, but they could see a massive rock and a section of the old gym's roof there, and they were definitely not the only ones. Okay. Rias rolled up her sleeves and walked to the poolside. I suppose we should get started. Ria-sama. Ravel began while covering her nose. How exactly are we gonna clean up this mess? It's not like she wasn't looking forward to learning new things, since she had never ever had to clean anything before in her life, with all the maids and servants at her home taking. Naruto and I have discussed this. Rias pointed out. First, we need to get rid of the water. With that, the blonde stepped forward and opened his bag to take out a pump-like machine, something that he had used Professor Heimerdinger's genius mind and power to create earlier that day. As he pushed the big red button on the back of the pump, a tube shot into the muddy water of the pool, and began to suck it up at a rapid rate. Don't ask me how it works, he said before Kibba could ask him anything. This was the drawback of merging with the Yordle professor, as his genius mind was his and his alone, like a supercomputer that could simplify everything for Naruto, while he was simply a secondary user. Once they separated, Naruto would lose all that belonged to Heimer, even the thought processes that he had made while merging with him. Still, it did not take it long for the pump to do the work, sucking up all the dirty water in the pool, despite being just a bit bigger than a soccer ball. Once done, the tube went back to the machine, allowing Rias to step forward and speak to him with a smile. Good job, Naruto. Now it's my turn. With that said, she waved her hand, and unleashed a wave of power of destruction. It formed over the pole before slowly lowering down, eradicating the sludge and leaves as well as the broken debris and rocks at the bottom before the demonic wave of power vanished completely, leaving nothing but a normal empty pool. Now we get down there and use these to sterilize the pool, just to be sure that we won't be swimming in a pool of bacteria. The crimson-haired high-class devil continued, and Naruto took out from his backpack a half-dozen spray bottles and brushes, before handing it out to the other members of the club. And of course, like the pump, Professor Uzumaki makes them for us. You know, President, we really need to stop with that nickname. It makes me feel really old, you know. Naruto said, but Rias merely stuck out her tongue cutely, before she grabbed her own bottle, and jumped down into the pool to start sterilizing it. I think it's cool and cute. Akeno giggled softly into her hand as she accepted her spray bottle from Naruto. Yes, Naruto-kun. Kibba chuckled as he added, and I also think that you will need to name your combinations with your champions. I think Professor Naruto is a good one with you merging with Professor Heimerdinger. So if I merge with the Hari, what shall it be then? The blonde knight suggested with a shrug. Kyuubi mode. I think I can come up with something better than that, but I like it. Don't just stand there, you three. Hurry up so we can use the pool. Rias called from inside the pool, while cleaning with her brush, making everyone hurriedly climb down and start helping her with the cleaning. It took them about 20 minutes to finish, and once that everyone had climbed out of the pool, fresh water was poured inside. It's time for them to have their reward. Soon enough, Naruto was down to his black and orange swimming trunks, having done the changing in the gym. Kibba was the same, but his was a blue one. Ashia and the two first-year girls were both dressed in their school swimsuits, while the two blondes looking rather uncomfortable in them. Kaneko had a blank expression on her face, as usual, as she adjusted a swim cap over her head. Rias, on the other hand, seemed to be enjoying herself. Her perfect body was on display with her new white two-piece swimsuit, leaving nothing to the imagination, but no one would complain about it. Like her best friend and king, Akeno was also wearing her own swimsuit, but it was even more revealing than Ria's, being just a little more than a slingshot bikini that let her show off almost all of her lewd and voluptuous body, with her breasts and ass on full display. Zenobia, meanwhile, had not returned. Wow, talk about going overboard. Naruto couldn't help but comment. It was quite fortunate that he had dealt with enough of Evelyn's sexual teasing and Ria's habit of sleeping naked, or else he would have stood there gasping with his jaw on the ground. He then turned his head over to Ashia, who was standing with the other two, and praised with his trademark grin, "You three look great, by the way." "Thank you, senpai," Kaneko said to him in her usual tone. Avel didn't look like she heard him as she was still adjusting her swimsuit. The girl probably had never worn something that looked so simple and at the same time exposed so much of her skin before. Ashia, on the other hand, had a huge smile on her face when she heard him say that. "Really? You really think so, Naruto-san?" The former nun beamed with joy at the compliment. Before looking herself over, President San wanted to buy me a swimsuit too, but I think I am more comfortable with the school's swimsuit. "But you really think it looks good?" "Yeah, absolutely. You look cute in just about everything you wear, Ashia." The blonde girl blushed with joy at his compliment before Naruto continued. "So you've never been to a pool before? Do you know how to swim?" "I actually don't, Naruto-san." Ashia shook his head and answered him with a nervous smile. "Okay, let me help you." The blonde grinned as he jumped into the water, swiping his wet hair back from his forehead with a hand. "Naruto, do you mind helping Kaneko-chan too, while I help Ravel?" Ria spoke up from where she was sitting on the other side of the pool. "She doesn't know how to swim too, and can really use your help." "You don't know how to swim too?" Naruto asked in surprise, looking at the white-haired girl. Ravel could understand, because she's a fire phoenix, so obviously she didn't mix well with water. But Kaneko always seemed so in control of everything around her, so to find out you can't and don't like to swim is a bit surprising. "I don't like the water." Kaneko tried to sound indifferent, but he could still hear the nervousness in her soft voice. "Swimming is my least favorite activity." "Ah, I see, don't worry about it, Kaneko-chan." Naruto grinned. "With my help, you will know how to swim in no time." Kaneko continued to look unsure, but in the end she nodded her head nonetheless, and waited for Naruto to finish showing Ashia the basics of swimming before moving on to her, holding her hands, and helping her with some basic exercises. "You can do it, Kaneko-chan." Ashia cheered from the side, rooting for Kaneko with a big smile on her face. On the other side of the pool, his master was giving Ravel the same lesson. The girl looked so much more nervous than Kaneko, but was doing everything that Rias was instructing her to. "Whoa, easy there." When Kaneko and Ravel crossed paths with each other, their eyes met and almost instantly the two began to kick their legs and swim even harder than before, determined to know how to swim faster than the other. In the end, Naruto and Rias had to wait till both girls had run out of stamina to be able to start their own swimming time, doing so separately at first, before starting to play some games with each other, using a ball that they could use to pass between each other. Of course, the ball wasn't the only bouncy thing that Naruto had his attention on. Not being a pervert or anything like that, but they were so eye-catching that he couldn't stop but stare at them for a little while before snapping himself away. "Do you think we can grow fishes in this pool?" Yumi asked while munching on some fish Evelyn had prepared for her on the poolside. "It's a swimming pool, Yumi, not an aquarium." Naruto answered her with a chuckle. Ashia was sleeping not too far away from him and Yumi due to tiredness. Kaneko was also by the poolside resting on a beach chair under an umbrella while reading a book. Ravel, meanwhile, was doing her homework like the hardworking student that she was. "Rias is calling for you, I think," Yumi suddenly said, making Naruto turn his head around and look at Rias, who was beckoning him to come to her with a hand waving in front of her face. "Come here." She mouthed the words, and Naruto wasted no time to climb onto the poolside and make his way over to her, after drying himself up with a towel. "How can I help you, President?" Naruto asked once he was right next to her, but he had had a basic idea of what she needed from him, after seeing the bottle of sunscreen in her hand. "Can you help me apply this?" Rias asked with a smile, handing him the bottle of sunscreen before explaining, "We don't get burned under the sun like vampires, but sunlight is still the natural enemy of us devils, so we need this special sunscreen if we expose ourselves under the sun for too long." "Sure, I'd love to, President." Naruto grinned at Rias as he took the bottle from her. "Then shall we begin immediately?" Rias smiled and then to his shock and surprise, she removed her tiny top in front of him. Naruto felt himself almost slipping, even though the poolside wasn't that wet, and he wasn't even walking at all. His master had taken her bikini top off in front of him with seemingly no care for her modesty, leaving her large and firm breasts to bounce erotically. Sure, she slept in his room naked at least 2 or 3 times every week, but this was something entirely different. "Ah, don't be so surprised. There's no other boy around here, so I don't mind if it's you," Rias told him with a soft chuckle, before she turned around and lied down on her stomach, causing her breasts to pillow out underneath her as she parted her crimson hair to reveal the smooth and dazzling white skin of her back to his eyes. Naruto felt himself gulp nervously, because there were also the perfect globes of her ass as it was covered by nothing but a small white bottom. Go on ahead, and remember that I want the oil all over my body, Naruto. She added, making sure that the blonde was able to catch her meaning before moving on to do what he was told, starting with spreading the oil around the smooth expanse of skin on her back, before putting his hand down and beginning to spread it out. Her skin was so incredibly soft and smooth that Naruto doubted he would need to oil to be able to move his hand so smoothly. Will this do, President? Naruto couldn't help but ask. He had seen other couples doing this before, but he didn't know if he was doing it correctly or not, or even consider himself and Rias to be a couple. She did seem to like him a lot, however, favoring him over Kiba, the other active male member of the group, but at the same time, Rias was very affectionate with her servants, so it was hard for him to tell if she really had feelings for him. He would love nothing more than having the chance to date someone like her if it was possible. You're surprisingly good at this, you know, Naruto. Rias said as she looked at him from over her shoulder. Now, time to move your hand even lower. You can remove my bikini bottom too, if it is in the way. Okay, that might be a bit too far for a simple master-servant relationship. Then please, don't mind me. Naruto said and poured some more sunscreen into his hands, before placing his palm down her ass cheeks, making her moan softly, before smiling at him, turning her hips a little to make her ass wobble and jiggle. Naruto swallowed hard before he began to spread the lotion all over her heart-shaped butt, knowing that this was the thing so many men had wanted to do but couldn't as his fingers sunk a bit into her soft flesh. Even going so far as moving his hand under her bikini bottom to make sure that he did not miss a spot. Have you ever done this before, Naruto? Rias asked when Naruto moved his hands down her thighs. No, I haven't. The blonde admitted honestly with a chuckle. Would you like to do it again? Getting your hands all over me? Rias asked as she looked at him with a seductive smile. We can do it again in the shower late at night tonight, if you want. Naruto felt like having a nosebleed at that, but he refrained himself from ironically turning into an Eki manga's protagonist. He also knew that Rias wasn't joking or teasing him, and meant every word he said. Was he clueless enough to not catch the hint? No. Was he stupid enough to turn down such an offer? Absolutely not. Yes, I'd love nothing more than that, President. He might be turning into a pervert, but it wasn't for no good reason. But now? Rias then turned around and laid down on her back, her breasts heaving on her chest as she folded her hands behind the back of her head. I want some sunscreen on my front body too, Naruto. As you wish, President. Naruto really didn't waste any more time than that. The moment that he put his palms on her breasts, Naruto couldn't help but feel like he had accomplished an unachievable achievement, something that so many men had wanted to do, but couldn't. Continuing with his current task, Naruto was unable to stop himself from succumbing to the incredible sensation her breasts was making him feel, to the point that his hands unconsciously start groping and eating at the twin orbs, making Rias moan out in approval, and allow him to continue to do it, even after her breasts had been covered fully in sunscreen. Naruto-kun, will you apply oil to me too? Before Naruto could move his hand down, however, he then heard a sing-song voice, and felt something extremely soft and elastic press against his back, before seeing a pair of slender arms wrapping around him. Oh wow, your body is so hard. Naruto-kun. With that, Akeno's face expectedly appeared over his shoulder, making him take his hands back from Ria's breasts. Akeno-senpai? Naruto asked, but he didn't sound surprised in the slightest. In the end, who else had that sweet Winnie-san voice, and that RR giggle anyway? Now, don't you think that it is a bit unfair that you only do this for President? Akeno asked as if she was lightly criticizing him about something that definitely was not his fault, while pressing her breasts against his back. Hey, Akeno. Can't you see that Naruto is spending his time with me? Rias asked with a fierce look on her face as she sat up, her breasts jiggling enticingly in front of him when she did so. Akeno didn't look afraid, and continued to rest her chin on his shoulder. Just like that, their cheeks touched. Hey, Naruto-kun. This lady here is so scary. Wanna go off somewhere to have some fun with me? She asked, whispering in his ear, but obviously Rias could hear it. The two then started glaring at each other, with Akeno still wearing the playful smile on her face as she looked back directly at Rias, finding the amusement in teasing her and also Naruto. I have returned, Zenobia announced as she returned with a standard one-piece swimsuit that showed off her toned and curvy body. Whoa, you gone for like an hour, sword girl. Yumi spoke to her, after looking up from her half-eaten fish with a surprised look on her face. You miss all the fun. Yeah, I have trouble putting this thing on, but I'm fine now. She answered casually, crossing her arms on her chest as she looked over at the three devils on the other side of the pool. What's going on here? Nothing you should worry about, I suppose, was the answer Yumi gave her, before returning back to her fish, leaving Zenobia even more confused than before. We're back. Naruto called upon, walking into his home with Rias, Ravel, and Ashia following closely behind him, and Yumi riding with them inside Ashia's bag, poking her head out to look at them from inside. Welcome back, you five. Ahari smiled as she stepped out of the kitchen to greet them, with an apron worn around her waist. Were you all having fun today? Yeah, you should have joined us, Ahari. We had so much fun. Ryuz answered with a very radiant and beautiful smile, causing Ahari to raise an eyebrow in curiosity. The nine-tailed fox Vastaya could tell that the crimson-haired high-class devil was in a very good mood. Something amazing must have happened to her at the school pool. I can swim, but I'm not a fan of water, so it's a no for me. Ahari shook her head and smiled anyway. Your parents are back. Dinner will be ready in an hour, so you all should go wash up before we eat. You cooking tonight? Naruto couldn't help but ask while having a playful smile on his face. Yes, but Evelyn is helping me, so don't worry, I won't burn half a kitchen down this time. The black-haired fox Vastaya answered with a tone full of sarcasm, and a cute pout as she put her hands on her hips. Naruto just laughed as he put his shoes away, recalling Ahari's first time in the kitchen. The nine-tailed fox could cook, but she usually did it over a campfire, and not with the equipment that they had in the kitchen, having lived the majority of her life in the wilderness of Ionia. While she had gotten better at using a stove, no one in the house trusted Ahari enough to leave her alone in the kitchen, so she always had to cook with at least another cook watching over her, usually Evelyn, since the two of them were best friends, and had a much easier time with each other than the rest. Wait for me in the shower. He suddenly heard a whisper, and turned her head, to see Rhea smiling at him with their faces merely an inch from each other. Remembering what she had promised him at the pool earlier that day, the blonde couldn't stop, but feel all giddy and excited. It was not the first time they had taken a bath with each other. No, since Rhea had always had a tendency to burst into the bathroom whenever he was using it to bath with him, usually with Ashia, because she didn't want to be left out, but nonetheless, he knew that this time it would be different. I'm gonna go take a shower now, Naruto announced before hurriedly setting off to the bathroom on the second floor of his home, with Ahari seemingly being the only one who noticed he looked so much more eager than normal right after Ahari had snuck behind the other girls, Ashia specifically, and whispered something into his ear. Sona is back, by the way. The nine-tailed Gumiho called after her summoner, who grinned and nodded his head in understanding, before taking a turn from the path to the shower room to head towards Sona's room, where he then raised his hands to knock, and patiently waited for his blue-haired champion to answer the door. He did not have to wait long, as only a few seconds later, Sona opened the door, and greeted him with a smile as beautiful as her music, wearing a blue dress that matched the color of her hair, and allowed her to show off her voluptuous body amazingly. Good evening, Naruto. How are you today? I'm great. What about you, Sona? How was your audition today? Naruto asked with a hopeful smile. When the current lord and lady of the Phoenix household arrived at his home with their daughter to meet him officially for the first time, they hadn't just come to ask him to take care of Ravel, but they had also come with a job offer to Sona, after hearing how amazing her music was from the Grimoire. Apparently, the Phoenix owned the largest media industry of the Devil faction, with their second child being the boss of one of their companies, and had been looking for young and promising talents for their music empire. Sona, being an extremely talented virtuoso herself, was just the person they had been looking for to become their new rising star for years to come. Of course, for someone who had been waiting for the chance to play her music in front of a crowd to the fullest, without having to hold back or needing to worry about anything, Sona had accepted their offer almost instantly, and signed a contract with the Phoenix household, with Grafia acting as her temporal manager, and helping her out with the paperwork. The past few days the Maven had been doing a number of auditions and recording sessions, 2 of which Naruto had participated with everyone, so that they could cheer for her, and all of which she had passed beautifully with how well she had played. From what Riaz and Ravel had told him, Sona's magical music was very well received, and with her being a very beautiful and attractive young woman, it did not take it long for the Maven to become extremely popular in the underworld with her ability to play a variety of instruments, not just etwal, flawlessly and beautifully. It wasn't exaggerated to say that Sona captured the hearts of her audiences, bringing them from sorrow to bliss, from righteous martial pride to almost exquisite peace as she made them fall in love with her music itself. It's also worth mentioning that because she was basically a video game character that came to life, Sona was even more popular among the young devils who loved video games and had started to play League. Nevertheless, Sona was living the dream of her whole life, and Naruto was very happy for her as it was one of the main reasons that he had decided to offer her a place to live in his world, so her music wouldn't be wasted in a country that absolutely despite magic users like Sona. It went very well, Naruto. Sona smiled beautifully as she answered him, before she made an expression like she suddenly remembered something, heading back into her room to pick up something on the table, before returning to hand it to him. Smiling brightly as she continued through the communication telepathic link of them. Here, this is for you. This is. Naruto widened his eyes in realization as he looked at the thing that appeared to be a ticket in his hand. Yes, it's a ticket to my first concert. Front seat. Sona told him while smiling brightly, before suddenly her expression became somewhat shy as she continued rather nervously. I know that you've been very busy, Naruto, but if it is possible I'd be honored if you. Are you kidding me? Of course I'd love to come to your concert, Sona. Naruto shook his head and interrupted Sona before she could finish, having figured out what she wanted to say the moment she started it, making the blue-haired young woman look at him in surprise for a moment before smiling radiantly. So will everyone have their own ticket? Yes, I have enough tickets for everyone. I will give them at dinner tonight. It's just that I want to give yours to you first. Sona answered with a nod of her head, smiling softly at him as she continued. Thank you, Naruto. For everything. Please don't mention it. Naruto grinned and bid goodbye to Sona to go to his room, where he left his ticket in a drawer of his table and grabbed a pair of fresh clothes before making his way toward the second floor's bathroom at the end of the hallway. Once inside, the blonde made his way to the shower and turned the water onto a hot setting. He wouldn't have to wait long, so Naruto quickly got rid of his school uniform, undid the button of his shirts, and then pushed down his pants along with his boxers before stepping under the warm spray, which had started to get hot. Naruto had no idea how long he would have to wait, but he made sure to wash himself very carefully. The entire time, however, Naruto couldn't help but think about what would happen next once Rias arrived, causing his member to become rock hard. Then, the blonde heard the sound of the bathroom's door opening, and wiped his hand on the wet wall of the shower room to see a somewhat blurry mop of unmistakable crimson-red hair entering the room before the door was closed and locked, so no one could disturb him. He then heard a rustling sound of clothing being removed, and grew impatient in anticipation as a result. Fortunately for Naruto, Rias didn't make him wait too long, and slid the door of the shower room open to enter, naked as her long, beautiful crimson hair flowed down her back, and toward the back of her knees like a waterfall. Did I make you wait, Naruto? Naruto instantly shook his head and swallowed hard, but not because of nervousness but excitement and arousal. Maybe all of Evelyn's shameless sexual teasing and advances have finally gotten to him. Look who's eager. Rias smiled, her eyes darting down to his well-endowed member. She would be lying to herself, but she denied, having never seen it before, with how many times she had taken a bath with him, and checking him out while doing so. Can I? As Rias stepped under the shower with Naruto, the two spoke up almost at the same time, stopping when they realized what they were doing, but nonetheless ended up smiling at each other. Deciding to take the lead, Naruto leaned down a little, and pressed his lips against hers, kissing his master as he wrapped his arms around her sexy body with no hesitation to move one hand down to grope at her butt, making Rias moan softly into his mouth, while kissing him back, breasts smashing against his chest. As the two continued sharing their wet, tongue-filled kiss that seemed to get more and more aggressive with each other, Rias moved her hand through the tiny gap of their bodies, and found his shaft resting on both of their bellies. Wrapping her fingers around it, she began to stroke him, moving from the tip and going all the way down to the base. Naruto groaned in her mouth as he entangled his tongue with Rias, and felt himself unconsciously jerking his hips a bit to the movements of her hand, grunting when she tugged and squeezed harder at his dick. Only after 10 minutes of passionate kissing did they break away from each other. That was my first kiss, you know. Rias told him as her hand continued to probe and shift his lurching member around. That was mine too. You like it? I do. It's so much better than anything I have expected, especially when you are the one to have it. She said, smiling up at him, but you better take responsibility for having my first kiss, and for making me wait for so long. You bet I will. Boo, Rias, can I call you Rias? It feels weird addressing you as president, after we have gone this far. Go ahead, I don't mind, just make sure to call me by my name whenever you feel like it. Don't force yourself to call me president just for the sake of formality. Naruto grinned and claimed her lips with his own, kissing her with even more passion this time as his hands groped at her butt and roamed freely across her smooth backside, almost lifting her up as he stepped forward until Ria's back was pushed against the glass wall of the shower room. After a moment, Rias ended their kiss and threw her head back, letting out a soft moan as Naruto kissed down her neck, while his hands squeezed and dropped at her bountiful buttock, getting even more comfortable with the way how their relationship had turned out. In addition, Naruto also couldn't help but feel a strange sense of pride for being able to do something like this to his master, a high-class young lady of a noble devil household, while he was just a servant of her, and a normal human with a standard upbringing in the past. As he kissed his way down her chest, Rias started jerking her hand at a faster rate, making Naruto grunt in pleasure, as he arrived at the massive springy mounds of her breasts, hands moving out and molding into the fleshy expanses. His eyes traced up and down the crease between her breasts, hypnotized by its subtle sexiness. Under the shower, her body was practically glowing with flawless, natural beauty. Rias let out a moan as her whole body shuddered from the sensation of his palms pressing into her breasts, squeezing and kneading at her soft flesh, while his thumb flicking over her nipples gently. It did not take it long for Naruto to lean down and press his face between them, feeling just how soft they were with his cheek before parting his lips and sucking on her nipples, making Rias moan in approval, before they shared another kiss with each other. This time, Naruto pushed his tongue into her mouth even more ferociously, and Rias returned it with the same intensity as Naruto greedily pulled her body closer against his. Their mouths and tongues growing bolder and bolder with each intake of each other's breath between the passionate saliva swapping. At the same time, Ria's hand continued working tirelessly on him, becoming more and more successful as pushing him to his limit, edging him to unload his seed all over her milky skin. Obviously, she could feel the signs of my impending orgasm, his cock pulsating without falter, followed by his rapid and short breathing. It did not take long for Naruto to release his load after that, spilling his seed on their lower torsos, but ignored the mess in favor of continuing to lock lips. Only after another minutes of fervent kissing did the pair break away from each other, with Ria smiling at Naruto before turning around to put her walls on the walls, while sticking her beautiful rump back toward him. Here. Ria said while looking back at Naruto. His dick was still rock hard and lurching excitedly at the way she was presenting herself before him, from over her shoulder. Fuck me however you want, Naruto. She said and reached one hand behind her to pull her ass cheek to the side, exposing her tight virgin twat to Naruto, who scooted forward till he could press his cock against Ria's wet pink folds, and grasped her hips with one hand. Here I go. Grinning broadly, Naruto pushed his cock into Ria's tight pussy, grunting loudly at the incredible tightness and warmness of her inside. A quiet groan escaped from Ria's as she felt herself get stretched and penetrated by Naruto's dick, as he claimed her virginity, so tight. Naruto grunted as he started to slowly pump into the small passage that was currently gripping his cock. Moving his hands, Naruto grabbed Ria's ass in his hands, and began to thrust faster into her, thrusting more of his cock into her tight pussy. His grip on her butt tightened as he started fucking up into Ria's tight twat in earnest, causing Ria's to moan out and experience a toe-curling orgasm, and spurring him on to fuck her even harder. Still, due to the incredible tightness of Ria's pussy, it did not take it long for Naruto to reach his limits, causing his thrusts to pick up even more speed, but shortened, his hips now a blur as he forced all of his cock into Ria's already stretched out cunt. His hips colliding against her heart-shaped ass cheeks. The pressure building up in his balls easily dwarfed his earlier load. I'm gonna cum Ria's. He gasped, overwhelmed by the pleasure. Cum inside me, Naruto, claim me as yours. Hearing that was all Naruto could take, and with a loud grunt, the blonde started to hose down Ria's womb with his cum, making Ria's let loose as well at the feeling of his seed inside her. The feeling of her tight inside clenching down around his dick sent waves of pleasure up his spine, causing him to see white for a second. So good, Naruto. Ria's moaned as she rotated her hips, keeping his dick hard despite this being the second time he'd cum. More Naruto. Naruto grinned, feeling more than happy to oblige his master. Meanwhile, should we tell them that dinner is ready? Standing in the hallway just outside, Ahari asked as she crossed her arms under her bust, her fox ear twitching as she could hear the sounds of the rutting pair inside the bathroom. After closely observing both Ria's and Naruto, and how the two had acted when they returned, it hadn't been that difficult for Ahari to tell what the two wanted to do with each other, though she was not surprised that it was finally happening, having seen how Ria's acted around Naruto from day one she was at his home. Nah, let them be. You don't want to disturb young and hormonal teenagers when they are expressing sexually love to each other. Evelyn answered with a playful giggle. Like Ahari, she could hear the moaning coming from inside the bathroom. You sound awfully excited, you know. Ahari couldn't help but say, looking suspiciously at her demon friend. Oh, you bet. Evelyn giggled as she leaned a bit closer to the door of the bathroom. This should boost his confidence a little, and get him more comfortable with sex and all that shit. It won't be long till you see him drill me through the floor of his room. You know, I think coming here with you is a bad idea. Ahari said finally as she narrowed her eyes at Evelyn, who winked playfully back at her. Come on, let's head down before everyone starts wondering where we are and disturb them. Didn't get much sleep last night, Naruto-kun. Akeno leaned toward him, and asked when Naruto stifled a yawn next to her. Before he could answer her question, the Nadeshiko continued with another, her lips curving up elegantly in a teasing smile, as she leaned her head even closer to his leg, or was it something more exciting? She asked, almost whispering so that only him could hear her question. League, Akeno-senpai. Leaning his head back from Akeno with a small chuckle, Naruto answered while looking as normal as possible. Ah, I see. Try not to stay up late playing video games all night again, Naruto-kun, you know it's not good for your health. Akeno leaned back and said, making Naruto nod his head. However, he didn't know if he could breathe out a sigh of relief or not, since Akeno still had the smile on her face, but she snuck glances between him and her best friend Master, who was currently unlocking the sealed door near their clubroom in the old school building. It made him feel that she had accepted his answer, just not the one he had given her. He hated lying to his friend, but at the same time he also couldn't go out and brag to everyone that he had stayed up late till 4 in the morning having sex with Ria's in his bedroom, picking up where they had left off in the shower, once the two of them finally realized they had missed dinner. With the help of Ahari, who had been very aware of what they had done with each other in the shower, and some well-prepared excuses, Naruto and Ria's had managed to cover up for their absence, allowing their life to continue normally in Uzumaki residence. Still, it had been quite obvious that like Ahari, Evelyn had known about him and Ria's too. It's also worth mentioning that every time he had seen her last night, she always had a knowing, somewhat teasing and seductive smile on her face, which was similar to the one Akeno was wearing at the moment, albeit a lot more dangerous. Although Evelyn herself and her shameless behaviors no longer crept him out like how they had once been, Naruto couldn't stop himself from feeling a bit worried about how he would have to deal with her from now on, knowing full well her sexual advances would only get bolder from now on. As much as he did not want to admit it though, but putting a leash around her neck and used it to let her like a bitch, while fucking her stupid to show her he's the one in charge, had always been a tempting idea for him. Alright, I'm opening the door, Rias announced after she had removed the final seal from the door. From what he had heard from her earlier that day, her brother had given Rias permission to release her other bishop from his seal, as he believed that she's now strong enough to control him. From what he had heard about him so far, he was someone who had a very strong but uncontrollable power. And so, almost as soon as the heirs grabbed onto the door handle and pushed it open, an outrageously high-pitched scream was unleashed from the corner of the dark room. No. While Naruto, Ashia, Ravel and Zenovia were quite startled by the sudden scream, Rias and Akeno on the other hand, only sighed as the two great ladies entered the room with a nervously chuckling Kiba and a neutral-looking Kaneko following behind them. Good day to you, Rias said with a smile with her arms crossing under her large bust. Her devil vision allowed her to see clearly even in the dark room. It's nice to see you all energetic. Why? The high-pitched voice from inside the room replied. Despite knowing that the other bishop was a boy, Naruto couldn't help but think that the voice was rather girly. So it's a boy, right? Naruto couldn't help but ask, leaning over to Ravel. The drilled-haired girl nodded her head in confirmation, but she looked to be wondering the same thing. Can you see? The seal was removed, you know. You were able to go out now. Let's all go out together, shall we? Akeno persuaded the cross-dressing blonde with a gentle voice. However, she was shot down without hesitation, something that the Nadeshiko seemed to have expected. No? This place is good. I don't want to go outside. I don't want to meet people. Akeno could say with a hand on her cheek, while Rias let out a sigh in defeat. As he heard that, Naruto could only stand there and scratch the back of his head in confusion. He then leaned to the side, to peek into the room, and saw it to be decorated in an unexpectedly girlish manner, despite the fact that, again, the bishop was a male. There were stuffed dolls present here and there, but what caught his attention the most was a coffin that was placed in one corner of the room, where a cute-looking girl with platinum blonde hair and pinkish eyes, dressing in the academy's girl uniform, was hiding. It took Naruto a second to realize that this was the male bishop of his master girlfriend, Ria's Gremory. So, he's a shut-in and a crossdresser, the blonde concluded. The crossdresser was not unheard of, but the blonde found it hard to believe there was one as girlishly cute as he was. Yes, he has a hobby of dressing in female clothes. Akeno informed Naruto with a nod. He finds them cute, isn't that right, Gasper-kun? Back. Gasper screeched when the other three girls entered the room and stood around Naruto, with Ravel looking at Gasper rather disapprovingly. The members sure have increased by a lot, the boy yelled again. Naruto was not sure if the reply was either out of surprise or fear, which was kinda rude, because he and everyone had been looking forward to meeting him officially, especially Ashia since he was a fellow bishop like her. Yes and no, Gasper, everyone but Ravel here is my servant. She's the daughter of the Phoenix household who has come to this school to study. Rias introduced before looking at them. Everyone, this boy is Gasper Vladi. He's my first bishop and also a first year. Also, before being reincarnated he was half human, half vampire. So, a damper, right? Naruto asked and Rias nodded her head in confirmation, before she turned around to look at Gasper, lowering herself down to his level, before she spoke to him in a gentle tone. Gasper, it's fine for you to go out now. You don't have to be sealed anymore. However, Gasper only let out another cry. No. For me the outside world is impossible. I don't wanna. I am scared. I am scared of the outside. In any case, even if I go outside it would only cause trouble for others. Wow, talk about overreacting. Naruto chuckled as he spoke to Gasper, who let out another scream before his eyes shone. A strange feeling then washed over the blonde, making him blink, before he saw the cross-dressing boy running to the other side of the room. But then he realized no one but him reacted to it, with Rias not even turning her head, or Kiba making any movement with his hands, while scratching the back of his head with a forced smile on his face. If anything, he would say that they all looked like they were frozen. Whoa. He gasped before the feeling disappeared, and everyone could move again, looking confused when they couldn't see Gasper in front of them anymore. He ran over their guys. Naruto pointed his hand to where Gasper was trying to hide from them. Oh, okay. Gasper, did you accidentally? Rias then paused and turned her head to look at Naruto with a look of surprise on her face. Hold on, Naruto, you saw him ran? She asked slowly. Yeah. Was I not supposed to? The blonde couldn't help but ask. No, of course not, it's just quite amazing, that's all, Naruto-kun. Kiba shook his head and told him with an admiring smile. Thanks, I guess. Naruto said before turning his attention back to Gasper. So what's his power exactly? Time control, Naruto-kun. Akeno answered. Gasper-kun possesses a sacred gear called Forbidden Baylor View that allows him to stop the time of everything in his field of vision for a fixed interval of time whenever he gets too excited or scared. But the problem is that he cannot control it. Rias continued her queen's words, so by the orders of the Archduke and my brother Lucifer himself, he was sealed away to prevent unintentional activation of his power. The crimson-haired heiress explained further, making Naruto and the new members of the club nod their heads in understanding. Now they understood the reason why Gasper was sealed. The power to control time was really no joke. Even though I don't want you to talk about me. Gasper's timid voice was heard from a big cardboard box. It seemed while everyone was talking among each other, he had snuck in there to hide from everyone. Well, judging by ability, maybe he would be next after you and Akeno. Rias analyzed while looking at Naruto. Even though I say half vampire, he came from a pure-blooded vampire family with a good lineage, and has a powerful sacred gear, because of his human half. He's skilled with the abilities of vampires, and he also excels in human magic wielded by wizards as well. If not so, then he probably wouldn't have been made a bishop with just one evil piece. So how did you do it, Dry President? Naruto quickly corrected himself, but around the room many seemed to have caught on to it. I use a mutation bishop piece. Nonetheless, Rias answered before explaining, it's different from ordinary evil pieces. For those who require more than one piece to be reincarnated, us high-class devils can use a mutation piece instead, though it's not common for more than 1 in 10 demons to have a single piece of them. It's an irregularity that came up when the evil pieces system was created, like a bug in a video game, but it looks like it was left on purpose. Gasper was the one who used that piece. But the problem is his ability, not his sacred gear. What do you mean, Rias-sama? He possesses a rare ability, and it seems his sacred gear's power increases when he's unconscious. Maybe because of that, every day his power is increasing just like Naruto, albeit at a slower rate. Rias explained seriously, so there's a possibility he may attain balance breaker on his own in the future. Wow, you're quite awesome, huh, Gasper? Naruto chuckled as he looked at the cardboard box on the ground. In the past, I was judged to be not strong enough to control him by the people that evaluated me. Perhaps the reason that made them change their mind was because of you. His raw demonic power has already surpassed that of a high-class devil, and Yudo, who has attained his balance breaker. Rias nodded as she looked down at Gasper. Plus, I think it's about time we take him out too. He's been in this room for far too long anyway. Will he be alright? I mean, I know that he's only half vampire, but aren't vampires weak against the sun? Not to mention that he's also a devil now. Don't worry. Well, he dislikes it, given his status as a damper. He has an ability known as Daywalker which allows him to move in the day, so there shouldn't be any problem. Rias nodded at the question. Almost instantly, another cry was heard from inside the cardboard box. No. I am fine inside this cardboard box. The air and light of the outside are a natural enemy to me. Please let me stay in this room, or a cardboard box. Naruto had an urge to fasp him at that, and decided to ignore him in favor of asking Rias another question. What about blood? He's a vampire, so does he need to drink some? Since he's a half vampire, he doesn't thirst for blood as often. If you supply the blood for him once every 10 days, then there's no problem. Though it seems he originally didn't like drinking blood. Rias explained. As if to confirm Rias' answer, another scream was heard. I hate blood. I hate liver as well. Is there anything ordinary that you don't hate? Ravel asked with a look of displeasure on her face. A good-for-nothing vampire. Kaneko expectedly spoke those words with no mercy, resulting in another whine and cry from Gasper. It seemed to be the only time Kaneko and Ravel agreed on the same thing. So anyway, I will leave him to you guys. Rias looked at her servants. I need to leave with Akeno and Yudo to see Sona and her servants, to make the final arrangement for the meeting between the leaders of the 3 factions this Sunday. So for today I trust that you can help Gasper with his sacred gear and his shut-in problem somewhat. Don't worry, President, leave it to me. I know just the one who can teach him how to control his time power. Naruto grinned and then raised his hand, causing Rias and the others to step back a little to make some room for him, when they saw Naruto using his summoning power. In a flash of light, floating in front of them in a divine aura with his legs crossed was an old man with a magnificent white beard, long eyebrows and matching color hair. His outfit consisted of a red robe with long white sleeves and black pants, with a single long white flap connecting to the belt he wore around his waist. Ah, hello. Despite his divine appearance, the old man had an elderly warm smile on his face as he turned his head to look at Naruto. Young summoner Naruto Uzumaki, how may I be of service to you today? Hello, Gramps. Naruto grinned at Zillion, the Chrono Keeper, before gesturing his hand to the cardboard box on the floor and explaining his intention. Can you please take this kid in your hand and teach him how to control his power? He has time power just like you, but he cannot control it. Ah, I see, most interesting. Zillion laughed heartily while stroking his beard. I don't know how much I can help, but I will do my best. Hearing that, Gasper took a peek at Zillion from inside the cardboard box, and saw the Keeper of Time smiling warmly at him in response. The damper nervously looked back at him in response, but he couldn't bring himself to freak out anymore. Naruto smiled and nodded his head, "Thanks, Gramps." And so for the next few days, Gaspar got to train with Zillion, who taught him how to control his emotions, and in turn his power, as well as the physiology of time, something that Naruto didn't know if he could truly understand or not. Still, with Zillion's patience and kindness, it did not take it long for Gaspar to start warming up to him, allowing his training with the Keeper of Time to go smoother with each passing day. It was also thanks to the selfless efforts of Zenobia and Kaneko, who could be seen randomly chasing the poor damper around the academy either with Durandal or a bunch of garlics after school, with them both reasoning that a healthy spirit starts from a healthy body, something that was essential if one wanted to control their sacred gear, that allowed Gaspar to make a significant progress with his sacred gear. The damper was still shy and timid, but at least he showed more confidence whenever a member of the club was talking to him, Naruto included. Time flew, and it's finally the day of the long-awaited meeting between the leaders of the three factions. It was a beautiful morning. The sky was clear of cloud cover, the sun was shining brightly, and a gentle breeze blew through the city, causing the trees to sway lightly. It was the kind of day where most people would feel blessed to be alive. That morning, Naruto did everything he would have normally done. He woke up very early at 4, trained a little with the master of Runeterra, took a long shower to clear his mind of things, ate breakfast with his friends, parents and champions, and then prepared himself for the possibly most important event in the history of the world. As usual, Rias had decided that they would wear their school uniform, but Naruto had a little something different in mind. "Naruto, we're here, are you ready?" Rias asked as she knocked her hand on the door of his room. "Yes, please come in." The blonde replied, allowing his girlfriend to walk in with Ravel and Ashia following closely behind her, while the nun was hugging Yumi against her chest, finding Naruto standing in front of the full-body mirror in the room wearing his school uniform, but without its blazer. But as they walked closer to Naruto, Rias immediately noticed a jacket resting on the table next to him. The jacket looked very much like the ones he usually wore, with the difference being the hood at the top that was similar to the hoods on wizard robes. At the same time, the jacket also had the crest of the Institute of War on the back, with the circle surrounding the building now had the symbols of the recognized city-states of Runeterra, the homelands of his champions, starting with Bandal's city of the Yordle, Bilgewater the lawless haven of smugglers and pirates, the strong and lawful kingdom Demacia, the harsh and unforgiving land of Freljord, the home of unspoiled magic and natural magic Ionia, the fearsome and powerful empire known as Noxus, the thriving city of Progress Piltover, the district of Iron and Glass on, the mountain of myth and the gods themselves Tegan, the corrupted realm that was known as the Shadow Isles, the rising deserted empire Shurima, and ending with the last but not least, the force of insatiable hunger and life-devouring dimension, the Void. That's. Seeing the look of amazement Rias and Ashia were both giving to his new jacket, Naruto picked it up and showed it to them. "Gwen made it for me on the request of the High Summoner of the League. Since I'm one of them now, they want me to be recognized as a member of the Institute of War, and the Summoner of the League of Legends in this world." "I see." Rias smiled as Naruto put the jacket on, as glowing runes appeared on his sleeves, and shone brightly for a second before disappearing. Having seen Naruto studying, and using them before, Rias was able to recognize those to be the runes of summoners, which would allow him to summon his champions in a number of different ways. "It looks good on you, Naruto," she praised, with Yumi and Ashia nodding their heads repeatedly in agreement. Ravel, meanwhile, just crossed her arms and said nothing, but he had a feeling that she agreed with them too. "Thanks, President." Naruto smiled before he asked as he adjusted his collar. "Alright, I'm ready. Let's go." Thanks for listening. I do hope you enjoyed. If you want a next part of this video, like, subscribe, and comment down below, and turn on that bell notification, and also check out the other videos that I have created and enjoy. See you in the next video. Peace.